Some more great information. Check us out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Have you ever wondered what the biggest stress to our body is? Well, stay tuned to learn more. Alright everyone, this is Josh Rubin from East West Healing. Today we're going to be talking about the biggest stress to our system. You know, most people out there think that one of the biggest stresses to our system is, emotional stress or mental stress. Some people think it's physical stress, maybe like, not working out or working out too much, or just sitting all day, even being very sedentary. What is stressful to each person is very individualized to that person, right? We're all different human beings. I think that's first off one of the biggest keys that we always talk about is that principle of individuality. How we live and how we eat has to really meet the needs of who we are. What is a big stress to you? And honestly, when it comes to healing, that's a huge part of the process is really identifying what is a stress to you. Not what a book says, a blog says, not what Josh says, not what anyone else says. What do I feel like stresses me out, right? And once we identify it, then we can actually make the changes. Now, when we talk about stress, what we're really referring to is on a different end of it. One of the biggest stressors to the body and to our systems is blood sugar dysregulation, right? And blood sugar regulation creates a lot of balance and a lot of harmony within a system, but all the systems in the body. Now, we're not talking about diabetics, we're not talking about, type 1, type 2 diabetics, etc., insulin resistance, of course they fall into this. We're talking about everyone. We're talking about everyone out there. You're watching this video, everyone. Because most people think that stress is just, I work late, I overtrain, I undertrain, etc. And it is. But when we don't regulate our blood sugar, that's a huge stress to the system because it puts our body in survival mode, right? So when you undertrain or overtrain, you sit too much, you don't get enough sleep, maybe you have a hormonal imbalance and you have a really irregular cycle and it's painful. You have financial stress, whatever it may be. The body reacts the same way. And when our blood sugar is not regulated, those stressors become even more of a stress because our body's already in survival mode. And externally, you're living in survival mode. So what happens is when you're living in survival mode externally and you're doing these things, maybe because you have to, I don't know, you need the energy to do it. And when you don't, the body goes into this emergency state. And what happens is, there's certain hormones like insulin and potassium that actually help to regulate blood sugar, and there's certain hormones like glucagon, cortisol, thyroid, and adrenaline that will raise blood sugar. And what happens is these hormones become off balance, and our body doesn't have enough stored energy to produce energy to help us modulate the stress of how we're living. What it does is it starts pulling from other systems. It starts breaking down tissue. We actually push our body into a catabolic state. So we compensate. So now we're living a certain way and we actually can't support that physiologically, so we compensate, and that's when kind of the stages of disease actually begin. We're in stage 1, we're in a homeostatic state, we're balanced. But when we have a stress externally and our blood sugar is not regulated, which is even more of a stress, we don't have that harmony within the system, now these stresses are tenfold even more of a stress. And now we start seeing pathophysiological changes in the body. We're seeing physiological changes. We're seeing basically what we're doing is we're robbing Peter to pay Paul. Then from there, if we don't change how we're living or eating or thinking or breathing or sleeping, whatever we're doing, and we don't regulate our blood sugar, don't go back to homeostasis, which is balance and harmony. And we should, right? We should be able to bounce out of it when there's a stress and go back to homeostasis. But when we don't, we go into that morphological, we start seeing physical changes internally in the system, and then over time, it's chronic, we start seeing more pathophysiological changes externally, whether it be liver spots or growths within the body, etc. And then if we don't change how we're living, eating, regulate our blood sugar, etc., then we start seeing the symptoms, and then we go to disease and death, right? So we can facilitate that path. But if we learn to regulate our blood sugar to, number one, really set the stage, set that foundation for our system to support how we're living. And then once we do that, then we actually start to feel better, and we can look at how we're living or breathing or working and saying, is this really serving me from a standpoint of health? Then a lot of the times we actually start to make changes on how we think, how we work, how much sleep we're getting, etc. But we have to build that foundation first so we can actually start to feel somewhat better. Now, when we say blood sugar is a stress, and we say blood sugar, most people say, well, how do you regulate your blood sugar? Well, I'll be honest with you, it's actually really simple. We've done many videos on this, and I'll post them below. It's food frequency. Now, of course, I should preface that with, most of the time it's the foods you choose. It's making sure you're eating non-inflammatory proteins like broth, gelatin, dairy, eggs, liver, lamb, venison, beef, buffalo, etc. from clean sources, chicken from clean sources. It's making sure that you're eating more ripe fruits and overcooked roots than vegetables, because we're not cows and we can't break them down. I'm not saying you can't have them, like I said, more fruits and roots, and making sure you're eating healthy fats, like saturated fats, coconut oil, butter, ghee, things like that, and staying away from unsaturated fats. That would be healthy, digestible, metabolic foods. Then once we do that, we actually look at how many times a day do I need to eat in order to regulate my blood sugar? And most people say, well, how do you know if your blood sugar is regulated? I don't have the money to do a lab. I don't want to do a lab. I don't want to prick my finger all the time to see if my blood sugar is regulated. Well, it's pretty simple. Body temperature and pulse. And if you want to learn more, check out that video above. Maybe it's going to be over here. Yeah, it'll be over here. Check it out, learn more about body temperature and pulse, what it means, how it correlates with blood sugar, so you can regulate your blood sugar. Peace.